Yeah. All right, good evening. Welcome to the June 11th edition of the Community Development Advisory Committee meeting. Roll call, we have all members in attendance except for Wendy this evening. Looking for recommendation to approve the June 11th CDAC committee meeting agenda as approved and circulated. Brad, seconded by Greg, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to the approval of the minutes from the CDAC meeting on April the 9th of 2024. Any questions, concerns? Looking for a mover and a seconder for the minutes. Adrian and Councillor Pelkman, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Unfinished business, advertising strategy.
So thank you, Chair. At the last meeting, we brought forward an inventory of locations where we could do different advertising as well as naming rights. And we also presented a draft copy of a revenue generation policy. We presented at the last meeting, we asked if the committee members could peruse it, let us know if there's anything that we should be adding. It makes absolutely no sense to remove it. Again, this wouldn't be a process in which we were going to go out and spend oodles amounts of time, staff time, because we don't have the staff time to go out and dedicate to selling advertising. It would be more of a passive approach, very similar to the sponsorship program that we've had some success with regards to special events and so on, where we'll create some flyers and send out letters and so on, but we're not going to be going out and pounding the pavement, knocking on doors and that kind of stuff, because we just don't have the resources to do that. So it would be a bit more of a passive approach. There have been on occasions where people have called us up and asked if they can do this or do that, and specifically on the sports fields and so on, and we've been saying no, because we haven't had directions to do that. So this would allow us a little bit more flexibility to get away from just doing rink boards and ice and that kind of stuff. So anyway, I throw it back to the committee if there are any comments or suggestions, or if we're good to proceed and bring back a final draft for this committee to recommend to council.
Do you need a motion for that if that's the case, Director?
We would want to come back and bring back a cleaned up version before we go back to council.
Any questions, comments, Councillor Wilsey?
The only question I had was on total number of spaces. Would that be filled in with the approximate number before it goes to council? And just to clarify, we're only talking about the inventory now. We're not talking about the next item, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we can do that. The total number that's available. That would make sense for us to add that in there.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. And that was just the inventory draft, right, Director?
That's correct.
So advertising revenue generation policy now.
Again, this was presented at the last meeting. Staff have been playing around with the policy. You can see in here it's currently draft number 3. Again, left it with the committee if there's suggestions or concerns or any modifications that we'd like seen. Let us know, and then we can fit them back into the policy and make the changes that may need to be changed and brought back.
Question. Oh, Councillor Pammer.
Yeah, I didn't see anything in here for like not-for-profits, charitable organizations, and I just wonder if you want to include something in there, if there's going to be a discounted rate or something, because that just may come up, and so you might want to have it part of the policy.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Pelkman.
I'll follow up on that. would our current policy granting discounts for not-for-profits fit into that?
Not the way it's written. It's application for fee reduction that was just to council. That's primarily on space, not so much on advertising locations. So we can write in a 25% cost savings into the policy for not-for-profits. So that would keep it in line with that fee reduction for space.
Councillor Wilsey.
Two things. One on, it's just a typo that's on the last page, it says policy and digital assets. The space between policy and is missing.
Okay.
Just for nitpicking, and the spell check probably would have caught that anyways. But the other one is, how are the advertising rates determined? I haven't seen any rates for that yet, because there's going to be cost, and if we're giving discounts off of it, we need to make sure that we're not losing money by advertising. So are we looking at cost plus to get it, or a set rate? Because I know an elevator door is going to be different than a rink board, is going to be different than a window. How are we determining all those rates?
So currently what we've been doing is, because we have a couple oddball spots, we've taken the typical rink board, which is 4x8, and broken it down to a cost per square foot. So if an elevator door is, let's say it's 80 square feet, or 8 square feet versus 2 square feet, the cost would be more for the elevator door. So we've broken the rink board advertising down cost per square foot, and then we just apply that to the other locations.
Follow up, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, but I guess where I was going at was with the different materials, because if you're printing on something that's narrower, like to go on an elevator door, that's gonna be like a laminate film that you have to go on, that's gonna be a different material, and the window film will be different, and all of those things are gonna have, they might be similar, but I just wanna make sure we're not in a position where we're renting things out at a loss.
So the policy can be written, or the pricing structure can be written, the cost of the advertising plus production is at the cost of the advertiser versus at the cost of the municipality. So, and typically what we're using is decals already, and on the rink boards, they're just applied behind, it's not like a decal, it's like help me out with that, Darren.
It's a thin plastic sheet.
Yeah, a thin plastic sheet that's behind a piece of Lexan on the rink boards. On the elevator door, it's a decal. On the windows, it would be a decal. And Paul, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I was just going to say, currently the cost of production is on the advertiser anyways, so that it wouldn't be something that we would lose money on. They would pay for it, whatever materials are being used.
Perfect, as long as that's in the policy and that's clear, then I'm good with that.
Councillor Pelkman.
Do you currently do anything inside the elevator?
No, we do not.
So I know that we, at Seasons, pay money to the hospital to have an 8.5 by 11 page in the elevator, and that is the most sought after piece for us. So I know at sign makers in London, they have like 3-piece ones where you could fit three and you just mount it. Super cheap and easy to sell, probably.
Councillor Kramer and then Steve.
Going back to your comment about the square footage, how would you, I'm assuming that that wouldn't work for naming rights.
No.
So how are you pricing out naming rights?
So naming rights has its own policy. So we have a naming rights policy that dictates the value in which we would sell the naming rights for. And forgive me, I don't have that off the top of my head, but I want to say if it's a brand new building, to get your name on the building, it's 25% of the cost of construction. If it's a building that's 25 years of age and older, I want to say it's 2.5% of the replacement value of the space. So we would take, I'll use a multi-purpose room up at the Westcast room. Say it's 3,000 square feet. We would take a building cost for a space like that, let's say it's $425 a square foot, multiply that by 3,000, and then take 2.5% of that would be the cost for naming rights.
Steve.
Rob, the whole process, for someone who's never gone through it before, how do you go about it? Like, let's say I wanted to put a billboard up. Do I find my own designer and then find my own printer and then bring it to you guys and get your approval and then get your cost? And then does it go before council for approval and then back again, and then finally, is it our guys who mount it, or how does someone who's never done it before, and there might be people listening here who've never done it before, how does the process go?
So if someone wants to do, I'll use a rink board as an example. If a company comes forward, they want to advertise in our rink, and they've never done it before, we would suggest, we would just recommend sign companies. Like, there's a number of different sign companies in the community: Signs by Designs, Can Do Signs, Print More. There's a couple others that I can't think off the top of my head at the moment. We could direct them to sign companies in town, which then in turn could help them develop the signage themselves. We're not going to be doing the designing for them. That's not part of, we're just selling them the space. They would give us the sign would be made, it would be brought to us, and then we would install it. For a rink board situation, we would pull the Lexan off, and when we put the sign on behind the Lexan. If it was a decal that's going to be applied to a window, there'd be a company that would come in. So their sign company, whoever they use to make the sign, could come in and apply that. We wouldn't be applying that on the glass or on an elevator door, something like that. So.
And just to
follow up.
Is there protocols for that, like certain types of materials that they should use, and so we don't spend hours scrubbing it off or taking it off when they decide?
Absolutely. So, and the sign makers would know what type of material would need to go where. So, example being, when we had hometown hockey, we had limousine tint put on the doors here at the front of town hall, so you couldn't see from the street into town hall. But when you're leaving that building, you could see through the signage. It wasn't even there. And then when it came off, we just pulled it off. It was quite simple to get off. Some cases you may need to use a little bit of a razor blade. Not very often do we get challenges with glue that pulls from the sticker and stays on the glass.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Pickleball court update.
You're going to have to bear with me for a few minutes while I just get caught up to where you're at.
Sorry, I'm in the right spot though, aren't I? I think so.
Yeah. So at the last meeting, we had a gentleman by the name of Horst Green present a PowerPoint presentation called, I want to say All Can Play. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, I think so.
Making Room for All. And his proposal was that we look at installing a total of 4 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court. This committee here listened, had some questions for Horst, and then directed staff to look at the proposal and come back with costing and some logistics. So that's exactly what staff have done. Staff reached out to a contractor that we've used in the past, who we asked him what it would take to install pickleball courts, 4 pickleball courts, as per the suggestion that Horst had made. Our contractor has laid out, you can see in the report, that full-size pickleball courts would not fit on a tennis court. So we would not be able to get 4 courts per tennis court. We can get 2.5. So the contractor, is recommending 6 courts per 2 courts. And the cost associated with the work that was suggested in the presentation is about $13,000, $12,500 to be exact. But That would include portal nets, windscreen, and painting of the lines.
Questions, comments? Oh, Councilor Pammer.
How many, for 12,500, how many courts are we gonna get in total?
You would get 6 in total.
Because we only have 2 tennis courts?
We have four tennis courts, but the recommendation from Horst was just to do two tennis courts and leave 2 tennis courts full of, just for 10. We could put pickleball courts on all 4 courts if we wanted to, or, yeah. We'd end up getting, I would suggest, a total of 12 pickleball courts if we were to do the 4 tennis courts.
And how much would that change the price?
It would be $25,000.
It would just double the price.
Yeah.
Councilor Pelkman.
I guess my question is surrounding tennis. So what's happening with the usage of the tennis courts?
You will get competing sports. There will be a competition dynamic occur if we were to do all of this. Tennis tends to play more in the evenings. Pickleball tends to play more during the daytime. We're not there yet with regards to, we haven't had any complaints come into the office. But I would suggest that we go slow with this one. It may be better to go slow to go fast. So, you know, what I would suggest if we want to do this, we would start with 6 pickleball courts, evaluate it for a couple summers, and then maybe look at doing the other 6 pickleball courts.
Follow up, Councilor Pelkman.
Well, my thought was we know that pickleball is the fastest growing sport in North America and all that other stuff. But if they really want the courts, then they should be fundraising for specific courts, not shared courts. And I'm just wondering if we urge them to start that now rather than later, in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a fee they collect themselves every time they play, or I know at the senior center, when they needed to recover the pool tables, they each pitched in a toonie every time they played, and over the course of a year, they had enough to recover the pool tables.
We can make those suggestions. We don't have a pickleball association in the community, but we can make that suggestion to the group and see what comes up. And I'm not sure how we go about, because the same argument can be made for if we're going to be replacing hockey arena as an example. Right, put a surcharge on every hour of ice time, and then you collect that money to go into a reserve fund specifically towards an arena.
I would argue that the minor sports are already in the vein of, when that comes, that they would be prepared to pony up, as we saw before the Mount Bridges.
And I mean, yeah, and that's a good point as well. That's correct. Yeah.
Any other questions? Steve?
Were you able to communicate this back to Horst and see what his input was, as in the cost, if he was willing to cover that, if that was something that they were thinking about? Because when he gave his presentation, he seemed like that if there was a cost, they would be willing to cover that cost.
So if my memory serves me correctly, he did talk about there's the potential for raising some funds. We have not communicated back to him. I wanted to bring it to this committee before I reach out to the public with this information. It is public knowledge now. It's on the website. We can follow up with Horst and let him know the numbers that we found. And we can leave it with him and just say, look, if there's an interest, because this wouldn't be till 2025 anyway. I would put this on as a capital budget request for 2025, unless this committee made a motion to get $12,500. But then the challenge is going to be finding a contractor to do it this late in the season.
Councilor Wilson? Did you have your hand? Yeah, I was gonna go to Jagger after.
I'm gonna wait.
Okay, Jagger?
So, I recall the configuration of the courts were gonna be somewhat similar. So is this configuration here, was this presented by the contractor that was contacted? Okay, because I don't know, it just, that looks confusing to me.
Yeah, so the contractor could not fit 4 courts on 1 tennis court, 4 full-size pickleball courts on 1 tennis court. And that's what was presented by Horst, was 4 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court.
Councillor Pelham?
Yeah, so I'm trying to look at this from a perspective of ease of use and from a staffing perspective, you know, we can't be there to switch the nets over. I don't like the idea of portable nets sitting loose in the tennis courts because that's a recipe for either someone injuring themselves playing tennis and running into it, or they get stolen or vandalized. So again, I see the option of starting to work towards permanent courts as a much more feasible solution than temporary ones. I think everybody will be happier in the end. And if you're looking at a longer horizon, then you know, people might be surprised about how quickly they might be able to fundraise for a significant portion of it.
And it should be noted on, we did research out what the cost of a 6 court pickleball facility would be without lighting, was in the $300,000 range. If you were to include lighting, you'd add another $250,000 to that. So you're going to be north of $500,000 for lit pickleball courts.
But
Adrian, for a follow-up, Councillor Pelham.
given the noise, you probably don't want the lights anyways. No, I'm serious. Like, you don't want them playing pickleball at 10:30?
Depends where you construct the pickleball court, but
Adrian?
Do you know how much usage is on the tennis courts now
for tennis or pickleball?
for tennis?
Again, I don't know, we don't have numbers, but as I said before, tennis tends to play more at night and pickleball during the daytime.
I'm just wondering if it would be worth scrapping the 2 courts on the one side to transition them just into 6 pickleball courts. Just a thought. And also, would this qualify for PTP funding?
Just to add the lines, yes. Yeah.
Councillor Panhammer?
Yeah, I like that idea of doing a bit of a traffic study at the courts to look at when they're being used and how much they're being used, because if there are 2 courts sitting vacant a large amount of the time, then I think that sounds like a good compromise to make those 2 pickleball and leave the other two for tennis, at which case I would be in favor of using the PTP money to get the lines, but I get ahead of ourselves. But I think that unless you have a good idea already, Rob, but like what that usage is like.
I don't. And aside of putting counters on the access of the tennis courts, that would tell us how many people are coming and going. It wouldn't tell me what sport they're playing. It wouldn't tell me if it was a mom and dad who showed up with their little kids to play ball hockey, which happens on the tennis courts even in the summertime. So it becomes challenging how we monitor that, because they're completely free use. And again, we don't have the resources to position staff out there. We can do random drive-bys and take counts, but I don't know how accurate that information is going to be.
Yeah, it depends on the day too, because I was there at 3:15 and all 4 were being used for tennis. Just happened to be today. So, question, Steve?
Age-wise, does tennis appeal to a younger demographic? Like, demographic-wise, does pickleball appeal to a broader spectrum of who we're going to service than just tennis? Because I notice a lot of people, there's certain type of people that play tennis, just like certain type that play golf. Whereas it seems like pickleball seems to have everybody from young to old playing it?
So I would say that both sports are very similar in the fact that pickleball was pretty much primarily a senior sport, and then it has grown into a larger demographic, including youth. But I would say the same goes for tennis. My 17-year-old daughter and her friends go and play tennis. They don't play pickleball. They think pickleball is for the old people, so they play tennis. Yet you'll see people my age, 55. I know, I'm a senior at Shoppers, you know, playing tennis. But then you'll see people who are Paul's age playing pickleball and or tennis. Like, so it's a, I would say that they're very similar, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've been seeing when I'm out and about.
Councilor Kramer?
Are there other courts, tennis, in the municipality, or just, or in Strathroy rather, I guess we're talking, other than at the fairgrounds?
No, there's not.
Okay.
There is 2 dedicated pickleball courts in Mount Bridges and 1 dedicated tennis court in Mount Bridges.
Brad?
Thank you, Chair. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, we just did the 55 and older seniors pickleball. We had 180 in the Ellerton Arena on the ice surface floor, and we had 210 at St. Mary's. So I had to have two places to do the tournament. And that was just for the district. Now we look after the region, which is Windsor to Kitchener pretty well. And that's going to be double that number. I don't know how I'm going to get them all in, but we're going to try.
Yeah, and for the first ever Hometown Festival pickleball tournament coming up Saturday, 90% of registration were 50 and older. Just letting you know. Any other comments, questions? Steve?
What kind of surface does it require?
Same as tennis.
So you couldn't play it on an asphalt surface then?
It is asphalt. So they play pickleball on concrete. They play pickleball on asphalt. So tennis court is an asphalt. Our tennis courts are asphalt, coated asphalt. The courts that we quoted in this proposal are concrete. They're cement courts, which is slightly different. Which you'll have more longevity on a cement court than you will on an asphalt court.
Sherry and then Councillor Puckman.
So just a quick question. So if you were to not scrap all 4 of those tennis courts, leave the tennis courts as is, and say the funding does come up for the 6 pickleball, is there space? Where would the space be to try to situate that?
For pickleball courts?
Right. Like still at the old arena area, or would you be looking at a completely different location entirely?
You guys are full of great questions tonight. We've looked at the old fairgrounds location as a possible venue. We do have the North Meadows secondary plan that has a very large piece of land that is dedicated as parkland. So they could go up there depending on how long it would take to construct the North Meadows secondary plan. Outside of that, I don't see you putting it, we've got space up at the Gemini potentially to do that. But the other parks we have are in a floodplain, and I would not want to be putting stuff like that in a floodplain.
Basketball nets?
Yorkview?
By the basketball nets?
By the basketball, then you're starting to get into fall ball territory off of the One Diamond. That would be the only concern there.
Councillor Puckman, did you have a question?
I did. I mean, I really like Donna's idea about, taking a head count. And, I think if we're looking at pure usership, I think obviously going with the 6 courts of pickleball would get more bang for our buck than 4 tennis courts. But, you would kind of like to have some justification for that. So I was just wondering, would a trail cam work mounted on one of the light poles just to check it out, like when you come in the morning, checking an hourly count at 4 p.m. there's this, at 5 p.m. there's this, at 6 p.m. is there legal ramifications behind that, or?
I was gonna ask that too.
we'd have to talk to IT about that, because we're, like, for us to be looking at security cameras, there's a whole slew of process that we need to go through. Like, we need to write down why we're looking at it, when we're looking at it, what's the purpose of us looking at it. So there's a lot to that. I can speak with IT and see what their thoughts are with regards to that. We'd have to put signs up at the tennis court saying that people are being monitored. We'd have to let our staff know that when they're in the area that they're being monitored and all of that. So there's a lot to that. Leave it with me. I will survey the recreation group that I belong to. There's about 75 of us who are on an email chain. I'll see what they've done in other communities that have been facing similar challenges, and see if they have any strategies that we're not aware of.
Paul?
And just to comment back to the location as well, and to piggyback on Councillor Palkman's point earlier, we have to be careful where we choose as well. We've known other communities that have built pickleball courts in certain areas and ended up shutting them down because of the noise of the game. So we really want to be cautious of residential areas. That's what makes the fairgrounds a pretty good spot, that it's central enough away from those houses. And I don't know whether the North Meadows, whether that will have that same sort of surroundings or not, but yeah, that's what comes into play as well. So when we talk about York, you'd be really close to houses there as well, which could fall into that as well.
Councillor Wilson? Oh, sorry, Director, did you want to respond to that?
I was just gonna say, one of the reasons why the Gemini pops into my head, because of the industrial park.
Councillor Wilson?
I was at a training session a couple weeks ago, and it just so happened that there was 5 directors of rec in that training session. They had a discussion about putting pickleball courts onto tennis courts. What surprised me is that the majority of them said how adamant that tennis players and how vocal they were after pickleball courts were put on their tennis courts to show up to council were just as vocal, if not more vocal, than the pickleball players were before the tennis courts were taken away. And there's that was the
Sidewalks on Del Drive.
Yeah, that's my point is, if we do this, there will be a conflict of dynamics going on, right? There will be, it will happen.
And one of the other parts that they brought up was if we're doing only half of them, that the tennis players are going to say that it's interrupting their game with all the noise being right next to them. They can't concentrate on their game with what's going on with all the noises coming from the other half of the courts. So that was a conversation that kind of was happening when we were all out for dinner, and just talking about how adamant the tennis players would be that pickleball had ruined their tennis courts and they want them back and they want the line sandblasted off, and yeah, just something to keep in mind.
All right, any other comments, questions? Good discussion, okay. Reports of committees and departments, looking for recommendation that the reports from committees and departments be received for information. Brad and Jagger, all in favor? Terry, thank you. PTP 2024 list of projects.
That list just sits there as a reminder that we have $40,000 available for projects. There may be one coming forward in the near future. If there's, we may have a group interested in a robotic lawnmower. We're currently trying out at one of our sports fields right now. And it runs, I don't know, every day. We're cutting grass to about 1.5 inches, 0 clippings, and the users are extremely happy with it. So we're doing some testing. We need to get some information from the supplier and stuff, but the user groups seem to be very happy. There's been conversations about it, but nothing concrete. So we'll see what happens.
Questions, comments? Councillor Pugman.
I can just see the people who are using it unauthorized as a dog park, and the dog's chewing up the robotic lawnmower.
This lawnmower, Darren, what is it, about 3 feet by
Yeah,
3 feet, like it's a big.
48 inch cut.
I understand there's still 2 weeks left in the trials. Is there any possible, does it have to be on the playing side of the stadium field, or can it be on the other side of the fence due to safety reasons?
Correct. Right now, it's set up inside the fenced area, so that was our target area as our test. It can be ran outside that area. It does have safety parameters on it. It has sensors. It will stop. It has an emergency stop button on it, so it is safe for use in an open area.
No, I apologize. I might have confused you with my question. It's currently sitting inside the playing area. Does it have to be sitting inside the playing area, or can it be stationed outside the fence until it's needed to be used?
He's talking about when it's charging. So no, it was placed there it was placed there just out of convenience. If we were to use it to do Van Dyke 1, the other soccer field, we would position it in between the two fields and create what I would call a tunnel for it to go from field to field. But it's only placed where it's placed now out of convenience.
Okay, I've seen it in action. Pretty good. Councilor Kramer.
So we have this list here of projects, which we don't really talk about much, but that's okay. And we have $40,000 left to spend. Is that sort of about? And if we don't spend $40,000 this year, is that rolled into the next year budget? That's my first question.
So the $40,000 would be $40,000 next year, unless council chose to remove the $40,000. So it wouldn't go to 80.
And if we spent $40,000,
Yep.
then what happens next year? We go to council and ask for another 40?
Yep, so every year we ask for $40,000.
But if we didn't spend it, council's not gonna give us, the idea is you wouldn't go back and ask for more to make it 80.
So it's not capital funds. So
Okay.
this $40,000 has already been what I would say is taxed. So when we put it into the budget for next year, it's not going to make a difference. If council chooses to remove the $40,000, then that's a $40,000 savings. But then we have no ability to partner with any community groups to do any type of projects. If we don't spend the $40,000, that $40,000 does not become $80,000, okay?
And then, so back to the list then. For any of this to happen, and let's talk about things that are within the budget of 40,000, we would wait till there was a community partner, or could we just at this table say, we think we should do X, Y, Z this year? Like, what's the process for that? I don't feel like we've really went through
The
that.
program requires a community partner. If we were to
To buy
go,
garbage cans, you need a community partner.
oh no, we can buy garbage cans on our own, but if they want to help us buy garbage cans, they can, right? Like, so staff, we have money in our operating budget to buy garbage cans. This is just an item that someone threw on the list. No one's ever bid at it, but it's there as an option. It's a low-cost option for, say the Rotary Club wants to come out and buy a bunch of garbage cans, and they want to put their logo on it along with the municipality, then we can do that.
So should we be, like, I feel like this is kind of like this little secret list. Like, how do community organizations know that we're looking for partners for these specific things? Because I realize you don't have a lot of staff to do that, but is that something that the committee should be doing?
That's exactly what the committee should be doing.
Okay,
It's in the terms of reference.
okay. But would it be better if then as a committee, we decide, instead of all of us going out there randomly on a couple of things that we think would be good for the community this year, and then go ask for them? I'm looking to my fellow committee members. Does that make sense?
Councilor Wilson.
How I've done it is I've gone out and spoken to the local Lions Club and the Optimist Club in Mount Bridges. I just go out to their meetings, just end up kind of casually talking to the presidents or as we're there, they're asking how we can do things with the community, and it normally just comes up in conversation.
And then you share this list with them?
I share this list with them, I email it to them afterwards, and then I also include that if there's a project that's not on the list that they would like to add, we can bring it up in the committee. That's actually how we got the pickleball court lines in the Caradoc Community Center. It wasn't on the list. We had a community member who volunteered to pay the other half, the McGuires. And they paid their half and PTP covered the other half, and that's how we got pickleball court lines last year. So I've been promoting it to local clubs, especially when they ask me about doing parks or different things or what they can do, that this is a route we can take. And then letting them know also that we can add to this list, it's not definitive.
I had a counselor today reach out to me and say that there is a local business who wants to know what they can do for the community. And I was planning on reaching out to that business next week with our horticulturalist and see if we can get a tour of their business and then strike a conversation, because trees is one of those lists of donations and so on. So they come in sporadically, but it is part of the committee's responsibility is to, kind of go beat the bushes and do, what Councillor Wilsey is suggesting is, service clubs and so on. The reason, there's several reasons why the list came about. This is stuff that this committee has talked about and would like to see move forward, some of the items. Some of them are just like garbage cans and picnic tables and so on, which are also beneficial. But the program initially, and Steve can speak to why the program was originally brought forward, but it's always been in partnership with another organization. That's why it's called partnership, progressive partnership. If we were to say, oh, we got $40,000, so let's go put in trail lighting, well, that's a capital project. That's not a PTP project. So, okay, I don't know, Steve, if you wanted to.
Yeah, so I mean, it really started with the Communities in Bloom committee, that they were trying to beautify the town and they weren't getting any assistance from the municipality. So they came, made a presentation, put some pressure on council. Council finally conceded, yeah, we'll put some money down, and then that developed into, well, there are other groups that would like to do stuff as well. And so we came up with a whole list of stuff. We had a committee of, I think, 15 or 20 people that consisted from a conservation authority to school groups. I'm trying to think of who else was on it, but and yeah, we were very, very successful at the start of it in doing a lot with a little bit of money, and eventually the budget grew to 40,000 because we started doing bigger stuff like the Cenotaph project with the IODE and the signs along the road with Legion, and yeah, the projects just getting bigger, and then we kind of hit a tough spot where there weren't really any new ideas coming forward, and their community groups kind of tired out for a time being, and then now it's a different cycle. So,
any other comments, questions, Councilor Wilson?
Just one follow-up on Donna's first question. If the funds aren't used, does it go into a surplus for the rec department, or does it go into a reserve fund? And then if it goes into reserve fund, which reserve fund is that going into?
That is a finance question. I can get that information for our next meeting. I don't know where it goes.
Yes, Kramer.
Where were we at with the community garden?
Remind me where we left that.
We have a design. We are getting, so we have a full design. So we've asked them to phase it out for us. So because there's no way that we would be able to execute the full design, we have to come back to council with that, as council directed us to develop a plan and come back to council with it. So that should be coming in, I'm going to suggest probably late summer, early fall to council.
And we still have a community partner for that.
Yes, correct.
And so part of the funds would come from PTP and that community partner?
Correct.
Right, okay.
Any other questions? Steve?
What's the cost sharing percentage on that?
The municipality will contribute up to 50%.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay. New business market update.
I got this one.
Okay, Paul, go ahead.
We talked, I think, last meeting and the meeting before, if we could bring some numbers, so I can share with you that right now we have a total number of vendors at 113 right now, combined with our occasional and seasonal vendors, so we have 33 seasonal and 80 occasional. That number will continue to grow as we get into later this month and early next month when we start to see more of the produce vendors jump on the market, and you'll see that go up. So that's where those numbers are. We've had a couple markets now. We started with the night market on May 18th, and it went exceptionally well, especially because we had probably the best May 2-4 weather we've ever had. Attendance was around 3,500 estimated for that night. Feedback was tremendously positive, especially from some of the vendors and businesses. Probably, I know the Cookie Bar was one that I was able to talk to that was emphatic about how good it was. We've had many requests to do more night markets. Our hesitation with doing more night markets is that it's one of those things that we've got to be careful that we don't saturate with too many of them, and it loses the luster that comes with a night market. So that's kind of where we've balanced that. But again, first one was really good, and the weather had a lot to do with that. And then unfortunately the next weekend, the 25th, we had to cancel due to weather. And then the first we had around 400 people, and then last one on the 8th was about 500 people. So we'll see those numbers start to creep up as we have more vendors as well. Any questions on the market?
Councillor Wilsey.
The occasional vendors, I realize the 33 seasonal are there all year. The 88, that's not just for 1 week, like they're only there for once. So those are, how many vendors do we have like per event? Because that 88 is spread out over the 3 ones we've had already, I'm thinking.
80 is, that is a spread out number, so yeah, so it'll depend on the week whether we have 40, 45, 50, 55, because people will come in and out as occasional, and sometimes there'll be more for this week and less for that, and depending on themes, like we have a week where the not-for-profit can come for free. So, and then I don't know if we made a motion that was something that was going forward as well. Doesn't matter.
And I guess my only comment on that is if we report on numbers in the future, if we could get the number of vendors that are there per week instead of the total number, just that, it seems like there's 110 vendors, which I've been to almost all the markets, and I know there's not. I know your 30 to 50 numbers are there, but just to make sure that when people are watching this, if they haven't been to the market, they know how many vendors are there, and they're not coming expecting 100 vendors because we said there was 33 plus 88 seasonal.
We can do that.
Councillor Putnam.
Yeah, I'll just comment on my experience at the night market. I think that, starting the market off with a night one is a fantastic way to start. I was manning the municipal booth, and we had a lot of people come up who that was their first community event, and were just thrilled by it. They were just so excited to get out and enjoy the community that they had moved into over the winter, and haven't really had a chance to explore yet. So, but I agree. I think having too many night markets would erode the novelty of it, and I think that's why it works, because it's something that only happens once in a while.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Program updates.
I'll give you another update on camp as well as we get much closer to start date. we're at 1,834. Again, much higher than we were 1612 last year. So see those numbers continuing to go up. Our wait list is at 489. We were able to bring some off of that wait list with some shuffling and adjustments, but I don't see that coming down much more than that. And to be honest, I don't see our numbers going up a whole lot more either, because we're starting to plateau on spots that we can sell. So yeah, positive on that end. Aquatics, we doing really well there. Lessons, we're about 668 right now. Our target is to get combined between our lessons and our swim team up to 800. So 668 for the lessons, and then we've got 68 for the swim team. So another 64, and we've hit our target. So well on pace there, going really well. Our aquatic staff have found some areas where we can increase participation so that we can experience a little bit of growth without any pain. So hopefully that we'll continue to look for those little efficiencies that we can do in areas where we can inch a little more, but it's kind of getting to a spot where we have plateaued at the pool as well with what we can do programming wise without any sort of expanding of hours or facilities. So we have, one thing I wanted to mention was our memberships. We implemented these last year. It was something that really contributed to our bottom line when we talk about revenue for the pool. So we've sold 158 memberships already for the pool, 100 of those being all access passes that individuals can use all of the services. And then we've got 18 individual public swim passes and 40 family ones. So those going over really well, and we'll continue to sell those, especially leading into the busier months of July and August. Any question on aquatics?
Okay, thanks, Paul. Probably staying with you. Ribfest?
I'll just give the recreation numbers as well. Spring went really well. Again, 631 registrations. Continue to grow there. We've added a bunch of recreation or fitness programs that are gearing more to seniors, because it's daytime is where we've got the most play that we can add programs to. So that's gone really positive. And then our summer, as high as we've ever been, we're at 269 right now. It's still growing. We've got a beach volleyball program for kids that we've got 52 registrants right now for a league. So really, really positive, and we've gotten some good feedback on that already. And then our women's soccer league is back again as well, and we're just over 100 players in that one. So again, finding little ways that we can grow without needing to tap out our resources too much, and seeing some really good growth there. So
Ribfest.
Things coming along. I asked Kate, and she says it's coming along swimmingly is the term that she used. So yeah, some will love that. Good, we've got 7 vendors this year, so 2 of them being the rib vendors that were with us last year, and we've got 5 food trucks as well. So that's a really positive. We've got that set. We're gonna do a night market on the Saturday and a day market on the Sunday to add to the festival. Kids Zone is going to be loaded with stuff again, so lots for families to do. We've got our Stingray Invitational swim meet that we're going to hold that weekend. The aquatic staff are doing a good job of getting sponsors and recruiting teams right now, so finding different ways to get people out to the park. We've got most of our bands, I think, still looking for one on Friday night, so if there's anybody out there or anybody here that knows a band that may be looking to play, please pass that along to Kate. And then our signage is going to go out this week, so we can have it out for Hometown Festival rolling through the community, and it'll be all around showing that we got Rib Fest in two weeks after.
Questions? Okay, Hometown Festival. Paul, or you?
That's just merely more of a reminder that the Hometown Festival's coming up this weekend, that the streets will be closed on Friday to allow for the car show to take place in the Friday afternoon into the evening, and then the festival opens up Friday in Alexander Park as well. So if people have been down near the park, they've seen the rides have started to come in. There was some concerns based on the weather forecast of last week, that had municipal staff trying to come up with alternatives for where we could put the festival in case we got that 85 millimeters of rain it talked about in a week, which never materialized. So it will continue to be down at Alexander Park this weekend. So just really a placeholder to let people know, remind them that the festival's this weekend.
Meeting times.
So we no longer have a Mount Bridges Arena Committee meeting prior to our meetings. So I was speaking with some staff and was wondering if there's the possibility that we can move this meeting earlier into the evening, so we don't have to come here, go home at 4:30, come back at 6:45 and be here till 8:30 or 9 o'clock. If we can move the meeting up to 5 or 5:30, that would give municipal staff a little bit more time at home in the evening, say 7 o'clock rather than 9 o'clock, and then go to bed. Don't know how that works with committee members. The other thing is I need to let everyone know that there is a meeting on Mondays, scheduled now Mondays, called a strategic priorities meeting. If there is a holiday on the Monday, that meeting would be bumped to the Tuesday. So we have a meeting that would be interrupted by that meeting. It's not until November. So there may be some conflict with this new strategic priorities meeting, but we can worry about that when the time gets closer to those dates. But the big thing is about adjusting the time of the start time of the meeting. So
We need a motion to officially change the time.
that would be appreciated.
Questions, comments, motion? Councillor Wilson.
When we started at the beginning of council, was not the meeting starting time at 6? I can't remember what it was at initially.
The original start time was 6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking this is, there's 3 councillors here, but there's many more community members who also have jobs too, so I don't think 5 would be
We go around and ask, what's the earliest you can start?
I would agree 6.
6. Yeah, 6 for me would probably make the most sense.
6 works for me.
Steve?
6.
Adrian?
I'm good with 5.
Brad?
I'm good, I'm retired, so it doesn't matter.
Darren? Doesn't matter. Paul?
12:30.
Steve? Councillor Buckman?
I can do 5 earliest.
Councillor Pammer?
5
I could do 12:30. You have a motion for anything, or Councillor Buckman?
Well, obviously, since some people can't get here till 6, I say 6 is the earliest we can start. So I'll make a motion that we move the time frame to 6.
We have a seconder. Councillor Pammer, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Inquiries or comments by members? We'll start with Councillor Pammer.
Nothing?
Councillor Peltman. Paul Lattimore. Darren Downing. Brad.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Adrian.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Steve. No. Councillor Wilson.
I have one. I'm not sure if it's for this committee or if I should bring it up at regular council. But I've been asked by a few members about the fees that we're charging for the pool and for pickleball and different things like that. And just the difference between that and what the actual costs are. So I I guess my question to the director is if this is a finance question or a rec question, but the questions I've been getting have been asking about how profitable or unprofitable the different programs are. Not trying to set any targets for where they have to be profitable, but just putting the admission fees that we're charging against the staff time, the facilities, portion of the insurance that goes towards that facility to run it, all those different pieces to go together, just to see how much we actually are subsidizing the rec programs. That's been the question I've got. I don't know if that should come here or if I should do that at regular council, because I know that was brought up during the budget meeting as well.
Councilor Kramer?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the fees came to council for approval, correct?
Correct.
Scheduled fees.
Yeah, and we asked about changing them, and I was told that we couldn't do that because we didn't have a report on how much everything was gonna cost, and we'd have.
But I think that's still a council request. I don't think it's.
So where, I guess my question then, if you're gonna answer the question, is where do I ask for the report to get? And that's what my question was. I don't know where to ask for to get the information so we can make a decision.
For me, that's not a committee, that falls outside of the terms of reference for this committee. So that would be a council request. It could be a notice of motion, I suppose, or it could come up at the finance committee meetings that we have, but.
Councilor Bogdan?
Once a year, we set a fees bylaw. That's where the discussion should be held. Because once we set them, they're set for the year. And that needs to be stable so people can plan, so.
Yeah, and on that, when the fees bylaw came up, I asked a question when I was told that was when I could ask the question, and I was told we didn't have the information and we wouldn't make any changes. We didn't have the information. So we're stuck in a loop of where we can't change them because we don't have the information and we can't
Wait
get
till
it.
that meeting to ask the question. Like, ask in advance, because you know it's gonna come in the fall, so.
And that's what I'm trying to do now, is find out where to ask that question.
Director?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Steve? Just to follow up to that, because we already went through, you, but just go ahead quickly.
Didn't we set some fees or go through some fees at the very beginning? Did we not?
Director Littleburn.
Fees for user fees, we bring to council on an annual basis. So in the past, we've brought them to this committee as an information, but not for direction. The fees that we set are set primarily based on what our comparators are charging. We try to not be the most expensive, but we don't want to be the cheapest. The last Parks and Recreation Master Plan that we did had our municipality spending the least amount of tax dollars on recreation compared to the comparators in that study. And it also showed that community services brought in the most revenue outside of taxation compared to our comparators. So I'm comfortable with where our fees are set. If there is direction from council at a council meeting asking for a report identifying, that we charge this amount of money for pickleball and there's this cost for pickleball, I would be hopeful that would involve all programs that the municipality offers, not just our program that we're offering, but facilities that we provide to minor hockey, figure skating, minor soccer, and so on. Just to make sure that we're fair across the board with regards to that. Some of our programs will make money, some of our programs will lose money. That's just the way we've designed the program. When we started with recreation in the department, because I'm going to say, Paul, 7 years ago, roughly, the conversations that I had with the senior leadership team at that time was that we would bring recreation on not as a money loser, but not necessarily as a huge revenue generator either, that the programs needed to break even. And I would suggest that we're well beyond breaking even if you take everything that recreation pulls in and the expenses that recreation provides. If our insurance doesn't change, if we run recreation programs, we don't run recreation programs. Our utilities may fluctuate very little when we run recreation programming because the buildings are operating anyway. They would just be sitting there empty. So we can bring a report forward when and asked for at council.
Okay. That was it for you, Councilor Wilson, you're good? Okay, Jagger?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Sherry? Director Littlemore?
Nope.
I have nothing either. Next meeting is Tuesday, September the 10th, now at 6 p.m. And I need to move for adjournment. Councilor Pelkman, thank you very much for participating. Good night.